DJP episode 175. We're back and we are on like a good timeline. I like to think that we're actually at a pretty normal timeline. It's been about 1 week. It's been a busy week actually. I hope everybody's had a good week. I mean, last week was pretty busy, and I stay pretty busy for my work, doing all that and staying busy, but we had some extracurriculars here, exercised our treaty rights here a little bit here in Tulalip. Me and my cousins went crabbing. That was a good time. I always like to get out there on the water and feel like I don't know much. That's something about going out in the water. I mean, I go out there and I always learn something new. And I always really like trying to put myself into those situations. Obviously, I get frustrated, being out there in the water just like anybody else. I think the one thing is that gets me is sometimes like I feel like I'm just trying really hard to figure it out. I'm trying to learn it. I'm trying to rush it. And my cousins have this, they have it down. And I feel like sometimes I'm like, okay, I need to get to that. It's like I got to remember it's just like basketball. It's repetitions. You do this over and over again, you're going to get it down. And after I kind of got that and kind of just, my cousins did a good job of, showing me what to do and how to do it in the right way. And it was a good time. We had a great time. And so shout out to all the fishermen out there who are listening and, wherever they fish. I mean, there's a lot of fishing going on right now. All over the Pacific Northwest, all over the world, really, lots of fish are spawning or lots of, it's that time. I mean, look at the industry that fishing is. You go to Cabela's and there's the whole store is filled with stuff. And I know that's hunting and I know that's camping and there's hiking, but, fishing takes a pretty big department in that. And fishing is a lot more than just like the monetary value that it can bring. There's a lot of history to it as well, especially with our tribe. But before I get on to that and start giving you the we're fishermen, before I start doing all that, let's just get into this episode and have a great time. Yeah. And we're back. Yeah, I'm liking this new intro because I think it's like it's showing you what I've been into lately. I've been actually listening to a lot more Spanish music just because I don't really know what's being said, and I feel like it calms me down a little bit because sometimes we get really caught up in the music and you're just like, this lyric and what are they talking about? Is it WAP? What does WAP mean? And then all of a sudden, there's that going on. And so that's what, until I can learn some more Spanish, then that's what I'm going to be kind of jamming out to. I'd like to get to the fluent level. I'd like to, learn a little bit more of our own language too. But these are all things that we think about. We all are like, oh yeah, I want to go learn my language just a little bit more. All right, well, time to sacrifice all the time you put on Netflix. Yep. Don't want to do it now, huh? Jeez. That's the thing, man. It's with language, it's the same thing. It's repetitions. That's why these young kids they're getting them reps in early. We talk about early bird gets the worm. These little ones that are learning the language, they're getting these reps every day. They're practicing. They're not afraid to mess up. And I feel like that's something, we as adults can translate to, and I'm guilty of it too. There's times where people are like, how do you say this in Lushootsi, Dom? And I'd be like, we gotta look that up, and that's a good resource, but it takes a little while to find it, but we'll get there. I know personally, there's a lot of people who go, yeah, let's go check out the Lushootsi dictionary, we'll find our new bio. I feel like a lot of people do that too. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go put Lushootsi in this and not speak a lick of it anywhere. And, I may be guilty of that. I try to do my introduction into that. That's Tista Dithwalep Dominic Joseph. I'm Dominic Joseph from Tulalip Tribes. I think that's how you say it. And some people may be trying to correct me because I may have used a different introduction. But I'm not sitting here saying I'm a language warrior. I'm not fluent. And, the people who are working on the language, though, like the ones that are actually like more, the ones that know more than just like the 10 key words. Nothing wrong with learning the 10 key words now. Shout out to you. If you got your language in your head and I could ask you, what does this mean? And you know what it means. That's something. Like if someone said, hey, Dom, like, what was your favorite gun in Destiny 2 for matchmaking? I'd be like, well, this is the gun, like right off the bat, I could tell you that. You think about the things really well. And unfortunately, that one of those three things I think that come to mind right now is video game weapon facts. Yeah. If we're going to stay on this topic, because I know some people do like video games, I still think to date, Modern Warfare 2 has the best guns in any game I've ever played. And a lot of people are probably going to say, oh, they're all overpowered and they're all the same. But I think there was a lot of differences in them. I think they did a great job in that game. And I feel like as I've gotten older, Modern Warfare 2 is slowly becoming the 007 of my generation. Because there's a lot of people, back then they'd be like, what you know about 007? Let's play one-on-one. And, now we're getting a little bit older. And that one-on-one's turning into let's quick scope on Rust. And a lot of people are going to say, no, Dom, you're just trying to make something out of nothing. I think that's where we're headed. And that's okay. That's okay. Time's linear, man. We're all getting older at the same amount of time. But yeah, it's good. I think my forearms got a good workout. Grabbing the crab, you got to know how to grab a crab too. I feel like that's I think one of the staples, and then coiling I think is the next one. But I'll be honest, I'm not the best coiler either. I had to find alternatives to help me out, but that's what you do. You figure out things and you learn. Just like today, like we're learning that the pod is kind of going through some changes. I'm kind of going through, I think we're going to be black and white now. I like that look. Only because I think it's like when you're scrolling, there's so many things in color that when you look at it, it's like, oh, this is like different. And that's really it. So if anyone tries to be like, oh, yeah, Dom's doing the black and white because he can't afford to export it in color. I mean, if that was the case, I would go black and white, but that is not what's happening. I think we're just going to do it because it looks cool. And I feel like 90% of things in life, we go for it because they look cool. Some people are going to say, nah, Dom, Roth IRAs don't look cool. It's like, well, they don't look cool now, but wait till you cash it. Then it will look cool. We all want to look cool, I think, is the big thing. It's if you boil everything down to the simplicity, we're all here to try to get it on. To be honest with you. We're trying to here just have a good time and a silly goose time. And if you're going to try to, take away from that and be like, oh, I'm all about seriousness. It's like, okay, well, maybe you're serious because it's like you want to be known as that. Like we all have this attention drug. It's almost as bad as sugar. If I were to say the worst drugs out there or the worst habits or the worst, I don't know what else to say. Cravings, attention, and sugar are up there for dangerous things to be looking out for. Because attention, what do you think the pot is? It's attention. What do you think everything has in it, at least in North America, is sugar? And I tried to go, like I told you guys, I was trying to go for only drinking water. That didn't last that long, to be honest with you. But I did drink some Mountain Valley water, and that stuff's really good. Like spring water is really good. But the thing is what I'm excited about this episode is we actually got 6 texts from the voicemail on the DJP hotline. And we're going to jump into those pretty early because I think they actually bring up some pretty good points. Remember, you guys can always call in or text because a lot of people like to text now. It's just changing with the times. Text the hotline at 425-320-3641. That's not my personal number, but that is the hotline number, and you guys can leave a voicemail or leave a message, and I will get to it on the show if you're cool with that. So I put those into a document here on I'm not even going to say it because they're not paying me to say it. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. This one comes from Cliff in Yakima. Hey, Dom, I got a big problem. I've been collecting old cereal boxes for like 10 years. It started with a vintage Captain Crunch, and now I got over 300 boxes lining in my garage. Last weekend, my nephew asked why I don't eat them all and just move on. That hit kind of deep. My girlfriend says it's borderline hoarding, but I say it's history. Do I scale back and let go, or open a cereal museum and go all in? I'm partly joking about the museum part, but not really. Love to hear your feedback. First of all, you got a garage and you live in Yakima, so that's you got to find something to do out there. And I understand there's limited things to do, and it's really hot out there. So you chose cereal collecting, and that keeps you out of the sun. So that's the first thing I think of. The second thing, I think your nephew, he came in at the right time. I think people come into your life and they come and tell you funny things or straight up things that you didn't really want to hear. If it were up to me, because you're asking for my advice, I'd let it go. What I would do is I would keep the first vintage one, the vintage Captain Crunch one, and then all the other ones got to go. And I think it would because it's like, one, you can hold it and it could be still like, okay, I know at a time I did do this and now I'm not, but I still have it. That's what I would do. A lot of people have weird obsessions, man. So don't feel weird about it. If you got a crazy weird obsession, call in. 425-320-3641. Let me know. So Cliff, time to let it go, man. There's lots to do in Yakima, and I'm sure you could find something else. I got some contacts out there I could send to you, and maybe they can bring you to Dad's or to Miners or something, and maybe you guys can address that. Because cereal boxes, that's something else. But I'm glad you called in, and I'm not judging you. But everyone else might. So let's just make sure that you're on the lookout for that. Okay. Before we go to our little halftime break here, we got another text actually from Reginald. I think this is how you say it. If I'm saying your name incorrectly, please let me know. Because, we like to make sure people's names get pronounced right here. Reginald left his last name, but we're going to just say Reginald for the sake of this clip. Reginald from Lummi reached out to us on the DJP hotline. Make sure to call in. Hey, Dom, so my cousin's graduation party just got shut down. I texted because someone brought fireworks too early and scared the neighbor's horse. Cops showed up, Grandma got mad, and my uncle tried to claim that it was for another birthday party so nobody would get mad. Now the whole res is arguing on Facebook about it and asking where the party was and who was hosting. Should I say something or should I just not say anything at all? Oh, man. I feel like at this point, everyone's already kind of arguing it out anyway on Facebook. There's always like this weird line that we sit in and like looking at stuff on Facebook. You're like, do I jump in? It's like I feel like sometimes like there's always this weird line. It's like like you're in a relay race in the Olympics and you're waiting to be handed the baton to go start the fight on Facebook. I feel like that's a lot of it. Like a lot of people are like, do I jump in or not? It feels like, it feels like that. But if I were you, I think I'd stay out of it. People are going to know who is actually there, and you never know. I mean, at that point, we ain't no rat, and don't rat on yourself, man. There ain't no point, that's just how it is. So Reginald, yeah, I don't have the best advice in the world, but don't say anything, man. And the horses, dude, I've always been so, like, fascinated. I've always thought it was really funny how people get so mad that their dogs get upset about fireworks. I've always think it's so funny because people with dogs always think that you're out to get them during this time of year with fireworks. It's like, look, man, I'm trying to light this cake and I'm just trying to see some good colors out there and, hear some loud noises and hang out with my friends. All of a sudden, 3 neighbors think I'm doing this as a personal attack on their wiener dog. We're just having a good time, celebrating, trying to have fun. And then, Tiffany down the road thinks her 2 wiener dogs are getting firework abuse from us. And, for the next 3 months, they're going to walk by and they're going to glare because their wiener dog got upset by a couple of firecrackers. I don't know. Dogs don't like this time of year. 4th of July is rolling up and they do not like it. And they could be the biggest, baddest dog in the world, but they're not going to be a fan of 4th of July. That's for sure. Hey Dom, it's Billy. I'm calling from Quinault. I've been on the tribal housing list for over 3 years now, and I'm starting to feel stuck. I don't know if I should keep waiting or look for other options outside the res. Has anyone you know dealt with this? What is the best way to stay patient without losing hope? Ooh, and that... Losing hope and housing don't go together. I'm just going to say that. Housing authorities, housing... people, hold some weight in community, especially in, res communities. 3 years. I'm going to say this in the nicest way possible. Don't lose hope yet. Because 3 years on a wait list on housing, on the res, isn't that long. So, in retrospect, you got to dial in a little bit. You got to go live somewhere else, maybe see the world, maybe move across the highway, Quinault, move away from the ocean maybe. I know a lot of people like to be out there on the ocean in Quinault. But maybe it's time to venture. Maybe it's time to go across the res just a little bit and find like a little place. But, I understand renting's hard, But, I appreciate how you said, has anyone dealt with this? What is the best way to stay patient without losing hope in the housing department? Yeah, man, tribal housing, I got to be careful what I say on here. Tribal housing, they got some control. And, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I've been on the waiting list for a while myself. And our tribe does this thing where they kind of prioritize different people, with kids, or I don't know how that happens with you guys, but try not to lose hope because tribal housing lists, 3 years, it's not that long. I know that 3 years is probably the minimum I think somebody's going to wait for a house on tribal housing lists. So don't lose hope. Maybe it's time to learn a new hobby to kind of keep track, get that 3 years out of your head. You almost got to, this is what I think of it like, if you ever play the lottery and you choose your numbers and you really think they're going to win and you're really like stuck on those numbers all day, you go to the grocery store and you're like, I want 3 bags because I chose 3 on the Powerball. I say you gotta get that 3 years out of your head, because if you start counting, it's gonna be year 6, and you're gonna be really wishing that you're in those tribal houses. So think of it as like, hey, maybe it's time to go look at something new, and that house hopefully will pop up. But yeah, tribal housing frustrations, man. It's the waitlist blues, and I'm telling you, there's a time where patience starts to become pain, and I think that's where you're at. Anything past 3 years is a little bit painful, but sometimes you got to branch out for survival. All right, next call-in. Shout out to Billy from Quinault for that voicemail. Billy, Quinault they'll have some houses for you here soon. Let's keep that. Let's put that out there. This one also comes from Linda from Quinault. We got 2 Quinault voicemails this week, so shout out to the 2 who called in. This is Linda from Quinault. I actually wonder if they the previous 2 called at the same time, because it was within minutes of each other. Hey Dom, this is Linda calling from Quinault. I recently received a piece of beadwork from my family member, but it didn't quite fit me, and honestly the style wasn't really what I expected. I don't want to hurt her feelings, but I'm not sure what to do with it. Have you ever been in this situation? How do you handle gifts like that respectfully, especially when it comes to something somebody spent so much time on? Oof. That's the thing. Beadwork is something, because, beadwork people spend a lot of time on. And anytime somebody puts a lot of time into something like this, it really kind of makes you feel like obligated to really like it. And, that's the thing. Back then, when you didn't really like a gift, I feel like people would just be like, all right, we're just going to use it for trade then. I feel like that's what kind of happened. And people back then, if they didn't like something, they'd trade something for it. And I feel like right now, if somebody gives you something you don't like from Native country, they spent a lot of time on artwork or the beadwork, or, they painted something for you, and you're not really fond of it. It's not your style. My advice, you got to wear it in front of them a couple times. I know it might not be your style, but you gotta dial in and, fake it till you make it. Say, hey, I really like this. I really like this scarf you got me. And after you say you really like it a couple times, I think you're off the hook. You could give it away. And that's the thing with hand-me-downs or giving things away. You never want people to see that you gave it away. That's like my number one thing that I never want to see. But yes, I have been in the situation. But that's the exact advice I would give. You got to wear it in front of them a couple times, and then it could go in a box somewhere, and, you could rock it around them. Maybe once, it doesn't even have to be twice. Just let them know it's appreciated, because I'm sure they spent a lot of time on it. But send it into the pod. Hey, we're cool with that. Beadwork is sacred art, man. It's pretty nice stuff. All right, moving on to thank you, Linda, for calling from Quinault, and both of you guys from calling from Quinault. I thought I'd just put you guys together. This next call-in comes from Anonymous from Juneau, Alaska. I don't think that's their actual name. I think they're actually going by Anonymous via, hiding their identity. Anyways, this person's from Juneau, Alaska. Hey, Dom, been listening to the pod for about 2 years now. Glad to see that you're back, but I thought I'd call and ask for some advice. I just found out my cousin took my design I made at Culture Camp and is now selling it on Etsy. I usually wouldn't be too mad about this if it was for something like regalia, but to see he's making money on it on something I made with the same patterns and same colors, and all they did was add different teeth. I'm heated. Do I confront him, or do I let karma and the ancestors handle it? Anyways, glad to see that you're back. Hope you can help. Oof. This is something, I don't think I've ever experienced personally, on the money level. I've seen people, use designs of things I've made, and, it is a little bit it's annoying. But there's something about this that it's the wolf. I feel like, because he said wolf design and he changed the different teeth. I have always thought like wolves and humans, we've always had this relationship, but yet kind of rivalry at the same time, because we've used, traditionally wolves for pelts and for trade and lots of things, but they also hunt the same things we do. And I'm sure they have better noses than we do, and I'm sure they got better ears than we do, and they probably can, I don't want to say hunt better than us because we got pretty good tools now. But back then, we had tools then too. But I feel like we've always had the same feeling that you're having with being heated. You're looking for an animal, a wolf got to it before you out in the woods. You trapped it and they just went and got it. And I feel like that's what this is kind of replicating in nowadays situation. I feel like at this point, like it depends on how different it is. If the teeth are drastically different and it looks pretty far away from it, I probably wouldn't get too upset. But if it looks dang near the same, I'd say, hey, man, do I get a free shirt at least? Do I at least, like, next time I'm at the house, can I get 2 plates to go instead of 1? Let it be known that you do know that it is your design. And maybe next time you don't let them take your design. I know guys who have designs in books that are like prized possessions. Don't show them off. You start showing people all your artwork, people are going to start using it or inspired by it. But in this case, I don't think it was really much inspiration because he went and made money off of it. But also, I'm going to say this, and a lot of people may get upset. Some designs do look similar. But wolves look similar, and they're also different. So I wouldn't get too upset about it, unless he makes millions off of it. But I would definitely ask for, an extra to-go plate next time you're at his house. That's definitely what I would do. So that, this is the whole intellectual property. This is cultural respect, family conflicts over art. How do you approach this? This is a pretty loaded question. And this is probably something I'd ask somebody who's at like a much higher artist level than me where they're making money like that. But in this case, I wouldn't show people designs that I like myself. And that's the truth. So I wish you luck on that. Just let them know that because that ain't right. This next one comes from Kylan from Mohawk territory. Whoa, real far away. Let's see. Hey, Dom, I spent months and months listening to the podcast, but also months coming up with the perfect name for my new weed shop. I thought it was super original. Nope. Some cousin I barely talked to just moved back to the res from college, swooped in, trademarked my name, and now they're opening across the street, somewhat down the road, with my exact branding. What do I do? Sounds like they're across the street and down the road, so that's a little bit far, but not really. I appreciate the geographic, call out there. I think that was important. I have noticed, I've been out to that territory a couple times with my partner, and I think out there there's a lot of competition, and there's a lot of weed shops. But I think this is my advice. I think you got to just let them take the name. You don't need it no more. I think it's time for you to just pick an animal you like and your favorite number, and flip it. So what I would do, I would quit crying about the name that you probably thought that was the best name. Pick a number and pick an animal. And that's your new cannabis store. I'm sure back then animals liked cannabis. When they'd be walking by, and they'd be like, what's that smell? And they'd be like, that smells pretty good. And that's probably why they hung out around us. Or a reason. So I would say 4 salmon. 4 salmon cannabis. Or I would say 4 trees. Just pick a number and pick something, dude. It's not that hard. Don't think too deep into the name. Creative things will come as you start. And that's what kind of happened with this pod. I for a long time, I thought, what was the name going to be? I was going to call it like, at the time I was a big Kid Cudi guy. You know, I still like Kid Cudi, but, you know, not as much as I did back then. And I was like, oh, I should call it Day and Night Podcast. But I didn't, you know, I called it Dom Joseph Podcast because I didn't really know, and I didn't want to sit there for too long and think about a name. Now that I think about it, that kind of goes hard. Or Dom and Night Podcast. That sounds cool. But I didn't do it. But yeah, Res Business Drama, man. Don't worry about names. Don't ever worry about a Res Business name. I'm telling you. Number plus object. That's your name. You know. 3 Raven. You know, 3 Raven Jewelry. That sounds cool. I know you guys have like a 2 Bears up there, so you guys already got it down over there. 2 Bears something. You know, just kind of go from there. You know, out here you could say like 17 Orca. You know, doesn't really roll off the tongue, so you just choose a different number. You can go 32 Sea Lion. Nah, that one doesn't really, that's like a gamer tag. You know, I'd go 9 Sea Lion. Boom. I'm telling you. The perfect name they're always not perfect names. There's always something that you can change about them. But yeah, you know, I appreciate everyone calling in, and you know, I've been really I've been admiring being back to the pod. It's been refreshing. I've been really still wanting to get a wiener dog, man. I haven't got a wiener dog yet, but yeah, I've been really liking this new format. So, you know, yeah, you guys make sure to call in. I hope that was a little bit entertaining for you guys. We're kind of switching up the format as people are actually calling in a little bit more. 425-320-3641. I will see you guys next week. We'll get back at it. Make sure to call in, leave me some voicemails or text me, and we'll cover it here live on the show. All right, I'll see you guys next week. Wait.